Welcome to the law. This is your legal light. It is your help law. This afternoon, we sit down with Dr. Albert Antwi-Boasiako, former Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority. He's got a new book, The Republic, A Professional Journey, Ghana's Cybersecurity and the Making of a Role Model Country. It offers a rare insider's view of Ghana's digital transformation. That's a smacking transformation you want to learn about. Almost a miracle of a transformation. We'll learn lessons from his journey, the realities of recent cybersecurity crackdowns, and we may make some time for the controversies surrounding the proposed Cybersecurity Amendment Bill 2025. So stay tuned for a discussion that speaks to both national security and citizen trust. We'll be right back. For me, this is the crux of the matter. When you carry a strong outlook and deep internal confidence, it drives continued investment and consistent commitment to the chosen course. Benchmarking also played a vital role in elevating Ghana's cybersecurity profile. For investors and international partners, it signaled that Ghana's framework was closely modeled on what Tier 1 countries were doing. If nations such as US, Israel, and Singapore are in that tier, then to be counted alongside them makes a powerful statement. Ghana had made remarkable progress and was standing among the global leaders in cybersecurity. And I'm reading from page 222 of this book, The Republic, A Professional Journey, Ghana's Cybersecurity and the Making of a Role Model Country. The author is right here in the studio. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Albert Antwi-Boasiako.
Good afternoon, Samson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter.
We are privileged to have you. Right. So, what was the motivation for this book?
That's a good one.
Right.
First of all, before I even explain that, Samson, you've given a good highlight about the Republic's journey, which has been documented in this book. But it's been a journey of the collective, a journey of many people, many men and women, citizens, but also our external partners. I think it's also been a journey beyond one political cycle. Thankfully, I was in the picture in the private sector before I even had opportunity to serve in public service. And I've been able to document that as well. So the motivation is basically a tribute to those for the past 15 years or so who have contributed to establishing the foundations upon which our country can develop its cybersecurity activities. Now the motivation, I think Samson was a privilege. I think if you read in the book, I never thought I was going to see myself in the public sector. Everybody who knows me, my work ethics, my approach to issues, certainly, in fact, many thought I was going to fail, right? Exercising my skills in the public sector.
Who would think that way?
Certainly.
For a man who has spoken at over 100 international and domestic conferences, workshops, and forums, a man who has conducted training and capacity building programs across Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Pacific. Right. And when I begin to talk about the things he has been involved in, I don't know why anybody would think
I think
that you will not do fabulously well in public sector.
Samson, I try in the Republic also to tease out some philosophical reflections of what I've seen in this country. This is my own country. I've lived in this country. But I've also had opportunity to live in other people's country, to experience other people. And I think there's that always tendency, the propensity for a Ghanaian to, first of all, believe this is not possible. It's always present, okay? So I think it's a social or cultural thing. Again, I don't have expertise to investigate those cultural dynamics, but at least as a scientist, I reflect quite a lot. And it's not just about me, no. Let me put myself out of the picture. I remember when we started alliances in accreditation, Singapore was the only country in the world that had attempted to do that. Thankfully, in fact, it's in the book here, I was able to convince my sector minister, Madam Esler. We went to Singapore to learn. In fact, all their interaction with their industry stakeholders, Singaporeans were able to share with us. So we learned from them. Of course, learning from Singapore does not mean we were copying and pasting what the Singaporeans were doing. But at least you learn wisdom, especially from where possibly they had not achieved better. So the general sentiment was, even the UK hasn't done that. Israel hasn't done that. Why Ghana? But I can tell you, when we started the process with a commitment of the hardworking people I was fortunate to have had at the CSA, we had people coming to learn from us. Indeed, officials of UK government reach out to us, wanting to learn from how Ghana has approached its accreditation of professionals. I think it's settled, and it's normal. You don't expect that when you are beginning a project of that nature, that many people have not. I mean, the benchmark has always been, has Nigeria done it? And I think I've shared it, parliamentarians, where we're debating some of the of the instrument that we eventually sign up. It's normal. I didn't see anything wrong. And maybe from my philosophical background, I think I tried to use the allegory of the cave by Plato. It gives you a good insight as to how the population is thinking, but it should not put you off from achieving a goal. And I'm happy that at least the little that we did collectively, as I've mentioned, across all political divides, is now being celebrated globally as a role model country.
For some of us, learning about your sort of global citizenship roles, working and collaborating with the World Bank, the UNICEF, and all of these places, it was unsurprising that President Akufo-Addo described you as one of his, what did he say? That you are one of his best appointments. Now, tell us, of course, the data speaks for itself.
All right.
But tell us, when you describe Ghana as a role model country in cybersecurity, what specific reforms made that leap possible?
Very well. Council, thank you. To put things in perspective, the designation of our republic as a role model country, a tier 1 nation, it's not done by myself or anybody here. ITU has set up a certain framework, and ITU is a global regulator of the space. And it has identified 5 parameters, determinants, that nations are normally evaluated in terms of how they're performing. One area is institutional setup, one area is capacity development, one area is legislation, one area is international cooperation. So at almost every year, 2 years, ITU gather data independently, scientifically, and then come out to designate countries. So these were the scientific basis for Ghana's designation as a role model country, similar to many other countries. But let me give the facts. I have, again, as I explained, and you saw at the launch, my second country is Italy. And I have good friends there, so I teach them when CSA, we set up our Cybersecurity Authority quickly, before the Italians.
We're all awed when you spoke French.
I was Italian.
Italian with that fluency.
Absolutely.
Okay, proceed with the point.
Well,
I cut in.
I did my university education in Italy. In fact, as I speak here, the colleague sitting here is my classmate 20 years ago. We met. She's visiting me from Italy. So that's just a connection that I've long established. Okay. Italy is my second country. I have my home there, my family. I met my family there. I think I've put a little bit out there for the first time. That is where actually I met my wife. So It's something I want to put in perspective. But I keep on teasing them that, look, Italy is a part of the G1 country, one of the greatest industrialized nations on the planet. But we put our Cybersecurity Authority before them. I have a friend there, I said, look, so this is not about a developing country. It's a transformation that I think my country is making good strides. And that was one. Not just a competition, we're not competing, even though at the start, as I said, not many were in support of the idea. But we've seen many African countries following. If you take Ivory Coast, our neighbor, they just got their cybersecurity agency a year ago. Sierra Leone, others, all of them are following. We were just one step ahead in the way we were thinking and the vision for this country. Not because we were Russian. People mentioned that. I told you the unbelievability. Why are you Russian? Why are you doing this? I think it is always present in Ghana, whether in the private sector, whether in the public sector. There's always this sentiment that pushes you back. But I kept on telling my colleagues around me that I was there for a purpose. As a matter of fact, Sam, and I think I've made it very here, elaborately in this book, I didn't go looking for this role. The minister called me. She used to be a student of mine at Kofi Annan. I never, in fact, what I wanted to serve was on the board, and I thought there was something even good at the board. I didn't know that, look, serving the board in the public sector is basically public service. There was nothing like I was going to lead Ghana's cybersecurity development from that stage. But Madam Esler called me, said, Albert, I need somebody to support the work. That is how this whole journey came in. So it was a core that I knew it had a definite timeline. So at every point in time, I was in a hurry. Hurry means that, okay, thankfully I had a good political commitment. I was able to corner my minister, but you said I should come and help you. Then give me the basis. Indeed, she allowed me to work. I think it was one success that I have achieved. As Madam Esler, as a policy owner, allowed me to be able to deliver the mandate she had given me.
Right.
So it was quite an exciting journey, even though there were initial shocks that eventually I'll have a chance to explain.
What does it mean to say that Ghana moved from wherever it was, to a tier 1 role model country? As we understand, Ghana rose from 32% to over 99% on the Global Cybersecurity Index.
Right.
What does that mean?
Great. So again, referencing the ITU, and let me be more specific. So when you take legislative parameters, we passed a law that was considered quite comprehensive.
In 2020?
In 2020. Many countries on the African continent had not taken that step. Indeed, there's evidence of many countries copying from what we've done in Sierra Leone, even Mauritius. Mauritius is one of the forward-thinking countries, in fact, on the continent. They're doing well. They seem to be learning to also do things on their own. They are countries which do not wait for their neighbors to start something. I think that's where we're driving Ghana to. It does not mean we were not vetting or evaluating policy proposition. No, that is not it. I mean, I'm a scientist, and the least I would do is if you put a proposal there, I will have to vet it and see, look, this is fit for purpose, but purpose contextually. That means it's fit for the Ghanaian context. I think this is where, the sort of thing that you need to do. But you don't really have to wait for your neighbor to be able to do that. Law was one. But we also did a lot on international cooperation. Something we passed. I think we got Parliament to approve Ghana's accession to the Budapest Convention. We also got Parliament to ratify our relationship with the African Union through the Malabo Convention, which is the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. But we also involved in the UN-related activities, UN processes. In fact, we were quite active. Ghana was a net contributor of knowledge development globally. We were contributing to the provisions. Yes, Ghana has recently, signed up to the UN Convention Against Cybercrime. We contributed in terms of content. And I had a fantastic team at the CSA who were actively, lawyers and non-lawyers, contributing to this. So that was the shift. We move away from traditionally the West developing a concept, a framework, a process, and then we adapt. We were contributing to knowledge development globally. And I think that is one significance that also exemplified in our ranking. But I think at a domestic level, we also made conscious effort in terms of capacity building. For the first time, some of our Supreme Court judges here, we trained them in electronic evidence, thanks to the Council of Europe relationship with the country. We took them through electronic evidence. Before this whole setup, we had the ETA, which suddenly had brilliant offenses on cybercrime. But the implementation of that law was almost moot. CID, I started a project with the Me Crime Project. In fact, they had difficulty even identifying IP addresses at the time. There was a huge capacity gap. Forensic lab were not there. State agencies were using my lab. I think that's a country many people didn't know. I was a private actor supporting state institutions. For about 5 years, my lab was being used to support investigations into some of these issues. But at the time I was leaving the office, at least UNICEF has supported. CID has a digital forensic lab. People approach me and say, look, Albert, why are you building the state capabilities? If you set up a lab for CID, well, would they come to you? But I wasn't interested.
Okay.
Now there's a business model that I'm in private sector, and I'm going to consult for the defense team. So I think I'm possibly your client. There's always a way out. But there was no way a private sector person, you sit down for a state not to develop some of this capacity. So we built capacity in that area, not just the lab, but also training for investigators, prosecutors.
Your book blends personal journey with national transformation. Where did your conviction clash the most with political realities? And how did you navigate, that kind of tension?
That's a complex one. I'll put it even in the public sector realities. Because if you ask me something, politically, I think I was insulated. I just want to thank my political authorities. I didn't have any sort of push from the former president or Madam Esler. I think she knew me. If I'm doing my job, I'm doing my job. I'm a professional, and I got in there as a professional. So I think she allowed me that space to work. So politically, I don't think I had much issues. In fact, I had clearance to engage even with the opposition. I think the current minister will tell you, if he has opportunity, I did have support across the political divide. Honorable Agaga, Honorable St. George, Honorable Inusa, all of them supported our work here. So all these things are, you need to get political clearance. So these things were cleared. So I could have confidence and seek input from what? An opposition member. It doesn't happen. I bet you not many ministers will allow their director generals and others say, look, approach him to seek input. I had it. But the realities were public sector realities. And let me share one with you. I'm someone that, if I take a tax, I'm doing it. There's no way I can sit one place not to deliver. When I was appointed in my small office, I didn't have a printer. Now, I needed to work, printing, those levels, you don't do memos through emails. Isa Wawa was my chief director. He needed to see the paper memo, before he can sign off your request. I didn't have a printer. I had to use my own money to buy that. For me, printer of about 2,000 wasn't a big deal. I was in the private sector. So buying a printer to work wasn't a big deal. However, it nearly created a problem for me. Now, the director FNA at the time, Onatebi, after we've set up almost a year, I documented all this. I thought, well, I bought this. The receipts are here. Evidence, this is it. They found my money. Said, look, Albert, you pulled out the Public Financial Management Act. Now, if you don't take care, even use your own money for public service, could what? Lead to infractions. For me, that was a revelation. Something, don't blame public sector people when sometimes they act like this without acting. My own reflections mean that sometimes it's better, they are safer, not acting than to act and get into the issue. For me, this was a total contradiction. I saw that not as a results-driven. It's not like in public sector you ask for it and you are given. No. And what should I stay there for? So that was really problematic. But there were also a few things. Delays. Processes can take what? You initiate, you go through this, sometimes understand them. And one particular thing, in fact, when we're negotiating salaries, I abandoned the idea of discussing my own personal salary because of the notion. Now, the argument, the classic argument, the dogmatic argument in the public sector is this. To ask for more money, you need to generate money. So CSA was designated as a non-revenue generating what? Institution.
Okay.
So you have to take what is given to you from consolidated fund. Something. If you look at this law, just a bit, there's nothing. It's a security-centric organization. How do you expect a security sector to generate what? Revenue.
Well, it looks like in the proposed amendments, it will begin.
Absolutely.
It will begin to make revenue.
I think it's a problem. It's a problem. That is why
we will look at that one specific very shortly.
Right.
If you're just joining us, this is The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. And we're engaging the author of this book, The Republic, A Professional Journey, Ghana's Cybersecurity and the Making of a Role Model Country. And this is a national security transformation like none other. And the author is right here in the studio with us, the former Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority, who superintended Ghana's rise, miraculous rise, from 32% to over 99% on the global cybersecurity index. So Ghana now can rub shoulders with the Singapores, with even the US. And as I read about how all of that is done, I'm like, really? Is this Ghana? Got to pinch myself to be sure. Right. So now, whatever protection you may have enjoyed, I can imagine that there would have been some compromises that you had to refuse to make, even when such compromises, threatened your career or the project itself. Because what you did, I see it as a project.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thompson, you're right. I think one thing is for sure, personnel. Look, and I bet you as I sit here, I don't think I have many friends. My work, anybody who has issue with Albert, it's about my work. I have a clear goal. If I'm achieving results with you, whether you are from my hometown, my home, it doesn't matter. It's about the work. I think anybody who knows me knows that my work is my work and everything else is considered. When you have such personal conviction, Thompson, you're not friend to many. One is you're likely to be given certain CVs. CVs will not fit for purpose. I must say that public sector, you have all sort of people who are there and not contributing much. Now, I think I enjoy the relationship with my political authority because they got, if you know each other, and personally, I think I've also explained how I got to know Madam Messler. We got to a point that Madam Messler will give me a CV, say, Albert, check if this person will fit into what? The team you're building. I was building a place like a private sector institution. I think everybody will attest to that. So there were moments, not just policy owner, but you have members of parliament, you have people who push certain CVs, but you evaluate them and say, look, this is our national cybersecurity establishment. It is not really the best to put certain, element there. So if you ask me, I had a bit of each there. Internally, I also had to take decisions. And not many, I can tell you. And even after I exited, because of negativity and others being revolves around that is normal. I think I've done a bit of framework and analysis as to
after you exited. Interestingly, you were called back and the authority, recognized you as the father of cybersecurity. That doesn't sound to me like somebody who got hated.
No, absolutely no. I mean, hated is quite a strong word to use. No, not at all. I'm just saying that as a leader, results-driven, you're not likely to have many on your side. I think it's clear. I was conscious of that from day one. And not just that, my private sector firm. This is Ghana, the context is key. But I think I commend the leadership of my successor. Of course, I do believe he got clearance from the minister because things don't just act like that. It was a bold statement to do. It doesn't normally happen, and sometimes I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, public sector.
I wasn't expecting.
The time is up, you exit, and they call you back.
If you mentioned that you've done well,
confer such a prestigious honor on you, father of cybersecurity.
So I think it was an exceptional act. That's how I see it. Within the country. I think when there's a political change, there's no, even the truth cannot be told.
That's
you
true.
can't mention names. No, I think it's, and it's not like the people are bad. It will have possibly political repercussions for them. They are protecting their roles and others as well. So I think for that, I thank my successor and the sector minister for recognizing publicly.
Right. We're building, we're building up to some of the things you are seeing in recent times where the Cybersecurity Authority is getting a lot of plaudits for, cracking down on cybercrime, and also to ask a few questions about the proposed amendments, whether they sit well with our human rights and other questions. But before we get there, if Ghana is now a role model country, what blind spots do we risk ignoring that could undo this progress?
Very well. I think first one is capacity. If you look at the ranking, currently ITU plays as 99.27. If you ask me where is the gap, it's a capacity gap. So capacity is the first one to do. Capacity by developing
99 is almost
new
perfection.
Talent, new talent, but also retaining the cybersecurity talent. If I tell you the number of people who are leaving the country to the West, Canada is one of the top destinations for our young people. I do believe CSA suffering the same. And it's a trend. Nobody should. In fact, I had a difficulty maintaining people for close to 8 years working with them. Because this guy have been developed, they've been given exposure, talented. So naturally, you look at that. If we don't really address that, then you're going to have that gap sustaining the current gains. Ultimately, it's also financing. And I think that is why you see the current policy owner actively pursuing the financial, the establishment of the Cybersecurity Fund, which I did mention. We couldn't establish that. And that is also a major gap I do believe has to be fixed as well. But overall, something that we got the foundation right. And that is what the ITU ranking, our model designation status tells us. The question is, how do we live up to that? How do we enforce, let's say, the laws on the protection of critical information infrastructure? So these are the qualitative questions that we need to interrogate and see how we pull this, this through.
Right. Yeah. At page 201, I read that over 1,000 criminal justice officials, investigators, prosecutors, and judges have been trained in cybercrime investigations and electronic evidence protocols by the time I left office.
Right.
It dovetails into my question. Right. Of course, even before that, in 2020, when the law that you superintended was eventually passed, Ghanaians were excited. I remember interviewing you on this very show, and Ghanaians were happy about the other aspects, including, cyber stalking of girls, let's say young people, sextortion. These are issues that people were concerned about, but they didn't seem to see, a robust legal regime to clamp down on these things, So in light of the recent busts that we have seen, what patterns of cybercrime should citizens now be alert to?
The traditional approach of the bad actors has been financially motivated ones. There are different kind of cyber criminality being perpetrated. But contextually, more than 75% of the attacks are financially motivated. So let's put that in perspective. For the hardcore ones where ransomware attacks are being used to break into systems. But what they arrest revolves around what is on the public online safety threats. It's always, whether it's a romance scams, whether it's a business email compromise, whether it's a recruitment fraud, that is the biggest one. And there is a pattern here that now small businesses, watch sellers are still going on digital, social media. You can order, pay through Momo, and a dispatch can, look at the job creation aspect of this. So you don't really have to drive through traffic to buy watch.
That's right.
You can order. But the guys also, the dispatch riders are also making decent income. And you help address societal economic issues. But here we are, they advertise it. And you have bad actors also advertising using malicious, fake identity through Momo. So you go online now, you Google my preferred joy, my watch seller. The name comes there. So they mimic the brand. The good brands are being mimicked. A name comes, a different Momo number, paid through. The money is paid, and the watch is not delivered. This is undermining trust, and it has a whole cascading effect in the e-commerce development space. So internally, it's not just about, when you hear the arrest of the gentleman, the popular one that everybody seems to be talking about.
Abu Trika.
It's not just
Frederick Kumi.
Yes. It's not just a crime against Westerners, like American citizens. That is just one aspect of that. Of course, the news revolves around that. But there are equally important, crimes targeting our citizens. And that is also one area that requires critical attention, because the citizens are also being denied. It may not be in millions, like 8 million USD, but there is a case in point, somebody losing 2,000 Ghana cedis. That's a living wage for that person. So
beyond that, we've had countries that have gotten a very bad name and have had to suffer some blacklisting, among other things, because of the pervasive nature of romance scams, among others. We don't want to become a candidate for that.
I think we've been quite close, and we're not traded on paper, and we're not Amazon. You can't order books and others. I'm struggling. A lot of international partners will want to buy on Amazon. I have to use my second country, Italy, as a destination for some of this, shipment. It's not. It's really, created a problem for us as far as e-commerce development is concerned. But I think there is a positive development around the recent arrests. Something, if you can let me, highlight that. If you look at Section 13 of the Cybersecurity Act, the existing one, Joint Cybersecurity Committee, the vision of that, and I want to thank the current government for living and continuing that tradition. On the 1st of October, the President inaugurated the Joint Cybersecurity Committee members, a continuation of what we created through the law.
What do they do?
Basically, is to ensure collaboration. So when you hear CSA, IOCO, NIB, CID working together, there's a legal basis that bring this together. Because cybercrime by its nature is like octopus. EOCO has a mandate. It has a legal mandate to investigate and prosecute prohibited cyber activity. CID has a primary investigative role, and that involves cybercrime. The Financial Intelligence Center, certainly. Now, suspicious money laundering issues are being executed through digital channels and systems. But you have other players like the NCA, NITA, all of them have a role to play. So you needed a certain arrangement that will bring these agencies together, legally established for them to work together. And I think the effort there is quite commendable, considering the last few news that we've been hearing. For me, that is the exciting bit, that I'm seeing collaboration, because, you know, we like to go on our own.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's also quite pervasive. So when you see agencies operating like this, for me, I think that's what the Republic, the citizens should see as a positive development, but there's a legal basis for agencies
the collaboration,
to work together,
right,
exactly in that area.
Okay. Whilst that, you know, clearly tells us that law enforcement is active, you seem to give a glimmer into what may constitute some gaps that remain, particularly in public awareness that the criminals may still exploit. What do you see that you will tell us to help us to be more vigilant?
Okay. Look, I think don't believe anything unless you are verified.
Don't believe anything
you see there
until you have verified it.
Right. With AI, the similarity of the real.
So hold on there. Before then,
All right, okay.
you had given the example of my Wachi seller and someone else who may have cloned, you know, their brand, but I'll end up paying for the food and the food doesn't get delivered. How am I able to make the distinction that this is not Antimoni's Wachi I'm seeking to buy?
That's a very good one. That brings another intervention that we put in place, the point of contact for reporting suspicion to cybersecurity.
Right.
292. It's still active. It's been active for years. Now, I know for a normal person, it will be a challenge to basically detect what is fake and genuine. All of us will go to the internet, Google, and find a name. So don't believe in it until you are verified. Verify means that the fact that you've seen the first word, name and number, that's not guarantee that this is what you're looking at it. So for people like us, we are likely to see how many names are called Special Wachi 121. There could be 2, 3, all of them are there. Of course, the criminals are so smart that they want to appear actually, you know, using search engine optimization techniques to be on top of the search. You need to then see 2 or 3. You can place a call on your own to verify. In fact, I don't want to go into so much detail, but now with Momo numbers and others, people will start to test their certain Momo, they will see the name.
Exactly.
I think the Momo, the operators, I mean the network operators are also doing something right. You register your business name, you know, that is linked to Momo. That is also helping with the verification that you can do on your phone and others. And
your Ghana card is linked to
Absolutely. So I think those interventions are gradually fixing those loopholes.
Right.
But I think ultimately, something, call 292. I think the CSA has a mandate to provide such guidance and to be able to educate the citizens when they even have difficulty to do the verification.
What else? What else is a gap that you think there's a need for sufficient awareness?
I think if you ask me generally, I think we still disbelieve the fact that cyber criminals, you know, can do things that will overwhelm your own mental capacities. They can trick you to a point in time. And the only risk-based advice I will give, again, is what I just summarized. But I can give certain pointers to explain why. It is going to get worse, actually. And the reason I made that statement is, if you see how AI is playing a role in this, look, Samson, don't be surprised we're here and there is some, you know, video circulating with your head on it, but possibly the other side, no dress, and they say, this is what Samson is doing. It is, look, and look, opponent, either professional opponent,
they already start out there deep fakes.
Thank you.
You know, using my voice and image and name.
Look, it was extremely difficult, if impossible, to really govern the cyberspace. It wasn't created, I mean, The whole idea of the first architecture of the internet security wasn't a consideration out of that. It was ease of communicating, right? Let's communicate, let's share. And that has been, Americans say that's the freedom of the internet. But that has created quite a serious risk for us to live with. So I just want to put in perspective that the cyber remains an existential risk for us. I wouldn't want to give false hopes that people will lose guard. They think that something else will protect them, not even antivirus. It's not. I mean, the caution is always fundamental. In other words, the human element is always present for a near perfect protection from cyber attack. You may have antivirus installed on your phone, but depending on which site you were visiting, it is a matter whether you are even updating what? Your devices, if you don't really do the updates. The providers, the tech providers may have provided information already, but it's you, the human user, who will need to cause that action to ensure your device is protected. I think it is paramount that as users, we take personal responsibility and exercise caution as we use cyber platforms. Right.
If you're just joining us, we are having a conversation with Dr. Albert Antwi-Boasiako, cybersecurity expert and author. He's former Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority of Ghana. And I suppose I wanted us to stay a little, longer on this aspect where I can say that our viewers are getting, as it were, direct benefits as to how to navigate the cyber world safely. But time is running out. So the Cyber Security Amendment Bill 2025, as we understand it, it's seeking to strengthen protection for critical national information infrastructure. But from where you sit, what safeguards exist to ensure that this doesn't become unchecked state control over private systems? I look at proposed section 20B. I look at, proposed section 59J. And I'm asking myself, it does appear once officials or officers of the Cybersecurity Authority are going to be given police powers, and they are also going to be able to do what you may call warrantless searches or have access to us, there's a potential danger of abuse.
Very well. Something, thank you. I think, the amendment of the Cybersecurity Bill is certainly a topical issue. I want to state some few principles before I share my comment. One, amendment and reforms are necessary to sustain the gains that we've made. It's very necessary. In a dynamic cyber environment, certainly, any managers of the sector will have to take action to ensure that the states and its people are protected. That is one. Two, I must also understand, my own experience also in the public sector tells me this. Laws are not just made out of nothing. Amendments equally are not made out of nothing. I do believe there is always a policy underpins of the amendment. Normally, this is transmitted through memorandums. If you ask me something, I have not cited the memoranda accompanying the various amendments.
Yeah, because none has been advertised yet.
Thank you. I think that is very, and I want to exercise caution. But the third element is also, as somebody who actively for close to 8 years, led this process, I'm quite cautious. Cautious not to comment on what is appropriate for the country, but cautious in the sense that I know what policy formulation works. And I will give my comment in the context of what on this. Now, the important thing to also highlight in commenting on this issues is, look, when we started the cybersecurity law, and you are very aware of that, you look at certain provisions, investigatory powers. right? All those are there. Interception provisions are out there. Now the question is, they are in the law. We didn't have an opposition. They read that. It was a detailed work-through process, not to establish the legal reasonings from Malabo Convention and from the Budapest Convention, but also input from the right respecting bodies that we had. Ghana is a member of Freedom Online Coalition. Mm-hmm. When we passed the law, they issue a statement. They call our law the right respecting cybersecurity legislation. So Ghana being a model means we have ticked all the boxes. That even in terms of legislation, which talks about interception, and I've had candid conversation with civil society groups. If you ask Mr. Suleiman Ibrahim of Media Foundation, I said, look, there is always the need on one side. The state, the national security apparatus, the investigative bodies who will need interception powers. They will need some of this power.
For our collective interest and safety.
Let's be very honest. Equally, the citizen also has what? A real concern. So if you look at how we passed the interception provision, there were detailed processes in terms of in judicial oversight.
Correct.
That curtails the propensity for abuse.
To abuse, yeah.
I wanted to put this in context. And I think I like the public reaction. In fact, people have approached me. I said, look, I'm not making any comment on it.
I remember approaching you long ago and you declined.
I think I've mentioned this in this book. I think I've done my bit. And no matter what knowledge, experience I have, I cannot determine a policy orientation for
At page 320.
Absolutely. It's a principle.
You say, my principle of non-interference and non-negativity.
I don't.
Quote, the idea that past leaders should not unduly criticize or undermine their successes, especially in a political environment, should be a practice for institutional building.
Absolutely.
But here, we're looking at what you see with the benefit and experience that you have to guide us.
I think that now mention that.
Right.
I think the finality of the provision in the bill ought to be based on interactions, not just within the current ruling government, but the other party, civil society, industry. That is the formula. I think what I can give is how did we do it? And I think I can speak and mention the names of the NDC members of parliament that we had to sit down with, including the sector minister now. I think once you were able to fleshing out that approach, look, all those difficulties will be. Sometimes I have realized that once people are not engaged at a certain level, then they feel like, what is happening? I can only share how the primary legislation was drafted. There was cross-political collaboration. There was civil society involvement. There was industry. And I think if you look at the reactions which are coming, industry, I've seen some quite respected cybersecurity professionals who have done elaborate work in this area. And I'm quite impressed that we have expertise who are looking at. Some of them are lawyers, others are just cybersecurity people. And I do believe by now the ministry have received quite a whole volume of responses and reactions. I do believe that a careful calibration between the two, the needs of the Republic to protect us, and making sure that some of the potential areas that
infringement on privacy rights
are certainly addressed. But again, I would like to also see the policy context of this amendment, because that is quite key. And the policy context determined by the
Article
policy
18 of the 1992 Constitution. Right. Clause 1 says, every person has the right to own property, either alone or in association with others. But here is my interest. No person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of his home, property, correspondence, or communication. Of course, it says, except in accordance with law and as may be necessary in a free democratic society for public safety or for the economic well-being of the country, for the protection of health or morals, for the prevention of disorder or crime, or for the protection of the rights or freedoms of others. But certainly, when cybersecurity officials are giving police powers of arrest and seizure, when they are giving, they are to be giving, power to not require a warrant to have access to search on me, we should be concerned.
No doubt about that. And no doubt, and I want to side with you. Now the contest is, especially the policing powers, I see a shift in policy, respect to the policy direction under which I work. In fact, there was a clear decision not to give policing powers to the CSA at the onset. Now, cybersecurity has got many angles. In other words, responding to cyber threats is addressed from a number of angles. If you look at legislation, it addressed two critical concerns, which we felt within the criminal justice system, there were gaps. Because there were existing institutions. That's why I mentioned the joint.
Exactly.
Now, it was clear. Let's look at the developmental. Protection, risk management, standard, certification, the licensing, that's the developmental. But let's support the world regulations. That was just full. In fact, people were complaining that it's too what? Voluminous. I mean, the powers are too broad in here. Now, why the act? So if you look at the some provisions here, we did not give CSA that power. That power was given to the other investigative bodies.
Unfortunately, time has run out of us. Dr. Albert Antwi-Boasiako. So where do I find this?
Like
Amazon.
I think you find it, I have a website, Antwi-Boasiako.com.
Antwi-Boasiako.com.
That is it. It's being advertised there.
All right.
But if you also reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter, I think we'll be able to make that.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been The Law. It's your legal light. It is your health law. So, as ordinary Ghanaians, we can practically be the ones who give the support that the cybersecurity officials need to help protect us. I think that is the underlining message. Have a good afternoon.